Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As always, you can find the deck list in the description below. I go through tons of cards while I'm trying to put my decks together, so if you have any ideas or suggestions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Final Fantasy just got released and I've been hard at work brewing up some new ideas for Commander. The Aristocrats archetype is one of my personal favorite playstyles, so naturally I was very excited when Sephiroth Fabled Soldier was spoiled. But that said, in this video, I'll be utilizing Yawgmoth Thran Physician, which I'm using over Sephiroth in our commander slot. While I think Sephiroth is an amazing card, Yawgmoth is a clear winner when it comes to deck functionality and doing aristocrat things. Let me explain. Yawgmoth acts as a sacrifice outlet, a draw engine, and targeted removal all in a single card package. My issue with aristocrat decks in the past is that usually a card will have one of these three aspects, and I always found myself looking for the other pieces to make my deck function. Yawgmoth simply removes the need to assemble these three pieces and puts them all in the command zone for you. Yawgmoth is a 4-mana 2/4 with protection from humans. His main ability says sacrifice a creature and pay 1 life, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card. We can use this ability on demand and at instant speed. He also has pay 2 black mana and discard a card to proliferate. This makes Yawgmoth a highly versatile commander, and it gives you much more flexibility in your card choices for your deck. The core of the deck is designed to abuse Yawgmoth's first ability. Since I have a sacrifice outlet, a draw engine, and removal in the command zone, I was able to focus more on creature fodder and death triggers. While on the surface our fodder cards look insignificant, it's important to note their purpose. Each of these creatures has some type of effect when they die, either providing a token creature in their place or a treasure token to help us ramp and cast our spells. Each creature we are able to sacrifice essentially nets us a card, a death trigger, and a targeted removal with a -1/-1 counter. Doom Deserter says whenever this creature dies, create a 2/2 zombie. But with Yawgmoth in play, it might as well say draw 2 cards, put 2 -1/-1 counters on target creature, and any trigger on death permanents you control, they trigger twice. For 2 mana, that's a solid deal. A couple notable fodder pieces we have are Nest of Scarabs, Ophiomancer, and Ghoulish Procession. I opted to move away from the cards that only make 1 token on our turn, like Bitter Blossom for example. Instead, these 3 provide much more fodder at hardly any additional cost. The trick here is to interact with our opponents on their turn. Nest of Scarabs nets us a token every time we put a -1/-1 counter on any creature, and you can flood the board with -1/-1 counters and then use Yawgmoth's Proliferate ability to make a small Scarab army at instant speed. Ophiomancer and Ghoulish Procession net you a token on each turn, and that's on your opponent's turns too, drawing you more cards, distributing more counters, and of course, triggering your death permanents more often. Speaking of death triggers, let's look at our win cons and drain effects. Remember our friend Sephiroth from the beginning of the video? Now is his time to shine. Dropping Sephiroth with a small army of critters on the battlefield allows us to not only draw extra cards, but more importantly flip him to get our emblem at instant speed. We have ways to reanimate Sephiroth in this deck, which we'll talk about later, so once we do flip him, we can sacrifice him to Yawgmoth when needed, reanimate him, and do the process all over again. We can stack emblems this way. In addition, we are running Funeral Room and Bastion of Remembrance, both of which are enchantments that make it hard for our opponents to interact with. They both offer significant upside as well. Bastion nets us a token when it comes into play, and Awakening Hall function as a late game bomb to bring back all your fodder from the grave. Ayara, Blood Artist, Zulaport Cutthroat, and Marionette Apprentice all offer cheap and effective drain effects, and Vran offers huge pings of damage each turn cycle. Feral Ghoul is a great include here. With all of our sacrifice effects, we can make his power very big, very quick. Menace makes our opponents put 2 creatures in his way to block, and when he finally does bite the dust, adding rad counters to each of our opponents can do some hefty trickle damage. And lastly, Vein Ripper is our top end aristocrat. He offers a ton of damage at instant speed thanks to Yawgmoth, and note that this is any creature dying to trigger his ability. All of these dying effects make me underline our next support card, which is Drivnod, Carnage Dominus. Drivnod puts this deck on absolute high speed, doubling each of our death triggers. This doubles each of our drain effects, each of our token making effects, treasure making effects, and more. At 5 mana and the ability to be indestructible, he is an absolute threat to our opponents. I highlighted earlier that the big appeal to Yawgmoth is his ability to be a draw engine. Because of this, I'm not going too heavy into card draw outside of him, mostly because we should play Yawgmoth when we have a good sized board state, so even if our opponents have removal, we can refill our hand at instant speed. That said, I do play 2 other insane card draw engines here, in Smothering Abomination and the Weatherlight Completed. Generally, I see less play Morbid Opportunist or Phyrexian Arena here. While those cards are fine, the Abomination and Weatherlight give me access to card draw without limitation. Abomination's sacrifice a creature at upkeep drawback is essentially negligible in our list because we want to sacrifice creatures anyway. But the ability to draw 2 cards at each creature sacrifice with Yawgmoth is absurd. Weatherlight Completed is a card I've wanted to work with since it came out, and I have not seen it in any deck, like ever. For 2 mana, it can come down early while you develop your board state. It gives you card selection for your first 7 sacrifice triggers, and then it's off to the races. You'll draw an extra card for each creature that dies, it's doubled with Drivnod, and it's a 5/5 flyer to work with. This list plays the stock board sacrifice effects because it's worse for our opponents than it is for us. It also triggers Blood Artist and Sephiroth when our opponent's creatures die, so it makes those creatures even more potent. In addition, being mono black allows us to play Grave Pact with no downside and attrition for focused removal. Fatal Push, Innocent Blood, Tragic Slip, and Defile are all excellent and efficient removal spells that can take care of most threats. Yawgmoth gives out in -1/-1 counters too, so we can get around indestructibility pretty easily. Lastly, I play Maha Feathers Knight. Yawgmoth delivers -1/-1 counters, and it just so happens that Maha makes all of our opponent's creatures have exactly 1 toughness. How convenient. Mana in this deck is pretty straightforward with Sad Robot and Jet Medallion. Most of our critters are very cheap, so Jet Medallion is an absolute all-star, letting us cycle through the board state, draw cards with Yawgmoth, and play those cards cheaply. Being in black with so many creatures dying makes Black Market and Pitiless Plunderer a no-brainer. The treasures can help us cast our spells, and there's a slight synergy with Marionette Apprentice since she cares about artifacts going to the graveyard too. Lastly, this is 100% a Crowded Crypt deck. What a game ender this card can be. The Decayed Zombies die on their own, so you won't even need Yawgmoth in play. Crypt with a few Sephiroth emblems is simply game over. Reaper's Scythe is a new card that essentially is built for this deck. Any Aristocrat gives you 4 counters on this thing on each of your turns. Note that it's any player that loses life, including you who sacrificed a creature to Yawgmoth. The counters stay on the equipment too, so you can move it around from creature to creature for attack purposes. Did I mention that it comes with a creature when you cast it? Job Select gives you a 1/1 hero token, perfect fodder for Yawgmoth. Necroskitter and Vincent Valentine are both single engines that can do some serious work. The -1 counters put on by Yawgmoth make your opponent's creatures come back to your side of the battlefield when they die and Necroskitter is on the battlefield. Since our deck is an expert at killing things, this is an insanely good late game drop. Vincent is one of my favorite characters from Final Fantasy VII, and I was glad to see that he's right at home in this deck. When any of our opponent's creatures die, Vincent will get counters based on that dying creature's power, so our Grave Pact type of effects are super effective here. If he gets to attack, he'll gain us a ton of life and trample our opponents, and he also reanimates himself when we sacrifice him to Yawgmoth. Our last support card in our endgame strategy is Mikaeus. Mikaeus reanimates our dying creatures to bring them back with a +1/+1 counter on them if they didn't have a +1/+1 counter on them previously. Turns out that Yawgmoth distributes -1/-1 counters to any creature, so we can target our own creatures to abuse Mikaeus' ability indefinitely. Any of our drain permanents on the battlefield and it's game over. We play quite a few spells that help us reanimate our fodder and our key drain pieces throughout the game. Victimize and Thonian Nightmare offer tons of value to keep our fodder fuel going. If you've ever played Thonian Nightmare with Jet Medallion on the board, let me tell you, it's a good time. Couple it with Fleshbag Marauder or Wriggling Grub, and the value is absolutely insane. I included Haymaker Wake the Dead as a win con here. If your drain creatures have been killed or sacrificed and are in your graveyard, you can reanimate them as well as your fodder pieces to essentially kill your opponents out of nowhere and at instant speed. Great for playing around counter magic and your opponent's threatening turns. Lastly, Barad-dûr, Castle Locthwain, Spymaster's Vault, and Crypt of Agadim offer extra bonuses with little to no drawback or worry of mana issues since we're only in one color. Reliquary Tower supports our superior card drawing ability to keep our hand fully stacked. And Westvale Abbey lets us summon Ormenthal, Profane Prince, in a pinch to help us end the game. And that wraps up my overview of Yawgmoth Thran Physician. I'm excited to give this deck a spin on my next Friday Night Magic, but what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.